I'm not very strict on it because you have to evaluate it based on what are you actually producing. If you, for example, working for a high growth startup, you can't really justify the initial overhead of TDD because your first priority is shipping out the code base, and later on, I would say the engineering maturity comes. But if you're working, for example, a product where things are very stable and you can take your time to build out features in the best way possible, then you can use TDD. It's something that has this initial learning curve of figuring out, especially if you're not used to writing tests. It's a complete change of mindset where actually you write the tests first and then think of your code. But one thing I've noticed helps is if wherever you're getting your product specifications from, if they're very well structured, they help you with thinking about tests as well. Instead of you just getting a requirement that this is the feature that I want to build. Instead, what a lot of, I would say, product managers do is give you very good specification that as a user, I want to do this, and when I do this, I expect this. Now, in that case, working with TDD becomes much more simpler. So I feel it has its benefits, but you have to decide based on what you're building and what your circumstances are.
Yeah, true. Anna or Philip, did you guys have any kind of experience, or people can have some examples for them? Like they should go for it. They should be convinced.
Yeah. So I haven't personally used TDD very much. And I guess the reason would be that, like, for the most part of my career, I was working in agency type of companies, which usually have this approach where you build as many projects as you can. You're trying to get a lot of income for the company. You're trying to grow the company and so on and so forth. It's like a circle of trying to grow the company, get more projects, getting more people in, doing more work, and so on and so forth. And in those type of situations, it's very hard to utilize TDD because you're trying to build things as quickly as possible, obviously. You're trying to make them good. You're trying to write quality code. You're trying to do your best when building the app. But also in those types of situations is that a lot of things change very quickly. And you very often have very strict deadlines, which means that if you're writing tests first, that's going to take away some time, obviously. The code is going to be covered, which is great. But if the client or if the design of the project, I guess, or some of the features change completely, it means that you also have to update all the tests. You have to update them in a way that they still make sense and that you're not just trying to quick fix or hot fix the tests, I guess. And you also have to change the code. So in those types of situations, I find that TDD is actually very restraining and it's going to take a lot of your time. However, if you're working on personal projects or if you're working in a company where you're building your own projects or your products, then TDD becomes much more likely to happen, and it's much easier to do something like that because you are building the product for the company, and obviously the company has deadlines, but it's also very flexible in that sense where you can get more time to contribute to tests and the testing environment and everything, so that the product that you ship as a company that's obviously going to help the company and you as a developer is as good as possible. So I have very weird feelings about TDD in general because I haven't had really great experience, unlike maybe Suhrajoti or maybe Arnav. So he can maybe drop some more comments on that.
So I'll definitely share my also 2 cents on the TDD thing. It's I think first of all, with platforms which have their own weird way of the UI getting rendered, which iOS is there, Android is there. Even I have worked a little bit on Mac OS apps and Windows apps as well, and they also have there. So real end-to-end TDD of the entire user behavior cycle is generally, I would say, let's be honest, it's actually impossible. It's not really possible. I mean, there are apps which do 100% of it, but then they are taking some assumptions. They are, covering over some flaky tests, and they are, basically, even if you're sort of doing something like perform click versus somebody actually clicking on your device, latencies of 200 milliseconds that the hardware layer put on, on the scroll flicking behaviors, those kind of things you can't actually emulate using TDD, right? I 100% agree with what Philip was saying, and I would actually take it a little ahead of that, is that even when you're working with an organization, if you are the one who is shipping the features on a product, TDD might not be so crucial to you and might actually hold you back. If you are creating SDKs, or if you are, internally in an organization, you are part of what generally are called platform teams. So you're building internal libraries for the rest of your team. So I used to run the platform team for a long time at Zomato, where we used to build things like the UI kit that the rest of the team is using, or the network kit that the rest of the team is using. So it's like being an internal library developer for the other feature teams that your apps using. Those are the cases where TDD is kind of important, and it's also easy to implement TDD on those surfaces because you're providing an API to somebody else to use. Like say, people who are making the Jetpack libraries, actually, right, on Google, they are definitely following TDD. If you see, the source code, you will see that they actually, a lot of places, you will see the comments. They actually write the test, the black box test, and then they write the actual implementation because they are shipping something that a lot of other developers would be using. So it's easy to programmatically test also what they are shipping, because it's not going to be consumed by users, it's going to be consumed by other developers. So there's going to be programmatical interface for that. And TDD is also important for those places because, in a 0.01 update on a Jetpack library, if there's a bug, then it becomes like millions of people tweet about it for the next 3 months when that happens. And then it's also very hard to fix it if the library is actually shipped and it's out there and it goes out in the wild with some apps. Then users would actually have problems with those things. So that's the space where TDD is sort of more important. Don't become somewhat like TDD fanatic when you're shipping products. Try to get as much code coverage as possible, but don't try to aim for 100% or otherwise I will not ship or something like that.
I think even we had the same kind of experience, and I have worked in startups only, and we always get these kind of deadlines and have to meet the business needs. But for sure, you have to decide between the performance, maintainability, and how would you be performing with the code? Like if a new feature comes up, like if you be able to incorporate the things and even a small, we actually had a very stupid issue which was encountered by our CTO, and we were like, we can't make a live, even if the QAs tested it, but sometimes it happens like some of the things can't be, we can't just be sure about some of the logics which we are writing, but maybe when we write tests and we are following the TDD approach, we will be covering most of the cases out there. But again, it depends on like how are you going for the code itself, and as the points you guys mentioned.